On today's show, we're going to be talking about infinite scroll. Is it time to make it finite? Are there other problematic patterns that we should be throwing in the bin? I'm Luke Murphy. I'm a design advocate at Zero Height, the design system management platform. I'm joined by my co host, Michelle Chin, design systems and design ops consultant extraordinaire. And this is Design Ops. Damn it, this is Design Systems WTF. Almost a perfect intro. Not quite. It's funny because we were just talking about this recently that my previous podcast, Design Ops Island Discs, was supposed to be called Design Ops WTF, but somebody poo-pooed the name internally and said that they thought it might be too offensive. So we
I
just
would
waited a
love
couple of years.
a design ops WTF.
I think we should start it.
I'd be down.
If somebody somebody listening doesn't do it before we do. Anyway, so we're talking about infinite scroll today. Well, and I think let's broaden this out. We're talking about problematic patterns through the lens of infinite scroll. So I suppose because this is your topic, so I suppose what's your beef with infinite scroll, Michelle?
Yeah, I think, in my pursuit of understanding ethical design, I stumbled across this article about Asa Raskin, who is credited with creating Infinite Scroll, and he originally had very harmless intentions. So, back in the day, you would go to Google, do a search, you'd reach the bottom of the page, you'd have to click like the second O in Google to get to the next page, or the two or something. And then you'd have to keep clicking. And he's like, wow, what a pain. Why don't we just keep loading? And you just get loading more content. And that seems really great. But then that also created very addictive behaviors like doom scrolling Instagram or your Facebook feed or whatever other social media there was, and there was no end in sight. And that became very problematic for a lot of reasons. Um, but I think in the flip side, for the businesses, it was really good. It kept you
Yeah.
stuck in their app. You were engaged. You were liking posts. You were replying. You were scrolling. You never reached the end, and you can next thing you know, it's like 5 hours later. Um, and then you start seeing the same TikTok videos again.
Yeah, and I find it really interesting the way that these types of patterns get framed because it's like if you're internal like you it's almost like you have a choice of how you frame these kinds of patterns because these are very common patterns. They've become almost like affordances. They've become so ingrained in the digital products we build that we kind of don't we see doing it any other way as like a subpar experience. um and yeah, when you're like talking about them and making the decision about how you do these types of things, it's usually like you have a choice of how to frame this. You could frame this as this is habit building, it is about user stickiness, it's about user retention. And it's like, or you could frame it as this is addiction building. And that's a bad thing, by the way. That's not a good, that's not a good product goal. um, it's, um, it's almost like it's taking away user agency. Um, I'm trying to think of other bad ways to frame it, but basically it's like that is pretty much it, right? It's like nefarious engagement. And it's you know recognizing that your users actually should have a healthy the fact that they've had to stop that they've had to put in place patterns to sort of counter these things with infinite scroll shows that it's probably not a great thing. Like, I don't know if you ever watch TikTok for long enough that you get the maybe you should take a break
Yeah,
screen.
yeah.
It's like that's probably an indication that that pattern is not great. Um,
But it's like to reconcile that it's great for the business, right? So you are
yeah,
like, because I think like that's the thing is like, and that's where I kind of questioned how much should design systems be responsible for like advocating for these patterns, documenting them, talking about the potential problems, that type of thing,
wholly,
right?
not wholly responsible, but it should be a large part of their remit, right? Like
I
you're
would think
you're
so.
you're positioning it as a question. I don't think it is a question.
But I mean, I think that's the thing is like, how many of us are actually documenting this to say, hey, watch
Yeah.
out. Um, or when you use this with caution. Or don't use it, right? Like we're just not going to create addictive mechanisms in our product.
Well, and this goes to like I think it's so I can't remember if I mentioned it on the last podcast because I don't know whether I'd released it or not. But I just wrote an article recently around creating we need to stop creating components and start creating patterns. Which, you know, anybody who's listened to an episode of this podcast in the last year will have heard me rabbit on about this anyway. But it's the fact that it's like patterns are such an important part of the design system because they're the part where um you have like conscious, they're biased, you have conscious choice in how you decide to implement things, experiences within your product. And I think that if anybody wasn't at Converge, which I'm assuming is a lot of people, because you know not everybody lives in the UK or near Brighton, but Amy Hoopstalk at Converge, which is now online if you go to oh god, promotion, zerohype.com/events/converge/video archives, I believe. I don't know. Look up Converge videos; they'll come up. Um, uh, Amy's talk is a really good example of like how these patterns can actually have impact. And one of the biggest points that she's trying to make is like these patterns are something that drive for change. But I think it's like similarly like what you're talking about. It's almost like again the amount of design systems I've seen that don't have principles at the top that are like we don't build addictive experiences, or you know, like it's like principles that are principled and that are biased. And I think it's something that's like pretty essential in design systems. But I suppose my question for you is, if you were trying to convince a business why they shouldn't go down this path, considering it is like it feels like something that is um, might be hard to do, especially in like revenue driven businesses. Um, I don't know. Like, do you have any tips or tricks on like how you'd approach that?
I don't know, because like I feel like if it was like me versus them, which is what I feel like it, like they're just gonna be like, well, you can go work somewhere else, and then I don't know. I can see myself. Well, maybe I just will, and then work for a company that makes no money because there's not enough engagement. Um, so I feel like it's a tricky situation, right? But I
Yeah.
think um, maybe it's one of those things where you're putting in like these band-aid fixes, like how TikTok is like, hey, you've been using us for a while, maybe take a break, right? Like um as a way to balance that, maybe. I don't know. Like,
So it's like try and advocate for not building like dickish experiences as a first step.
yeah.
And if you're unsuccessful with that, then at least advocate for creating safeguards around dickish experiences. is
Yeah,
that
and
is that like a good way to sum it up?
exactly. And then
Yeah.
I don't know, look for a new job maybe. But I think the thing is like I think as design system makers, we have the space to be able to say, document the pattern and say, hey, just FYI, this can have detrimental impacts to the user. Or be very
Yeah.
like, maybe say when are really suitable use cases for this type of um, like feature. So maybe not for like a feed, but maybe for like if you're searching for files, I don't want to have to like
Mm.
reach the bottom of the page and then hit like the pagination just to find a certain file. Um,
Yeah, it's like use it in a mindful way and put
yeah,
guardrails in on like where you use it. I do think that there is I think one of the things that comes to mind for me of like how you can mitigate against this and against like bad use of this, or like try and get investment to be able to like enshrine this in a pattern, um, is do research. So one of the things I think that's the thing. It's like this is a infinite scroll as an example. Um, you know there are countless studies out there that show the negative impact on like mental health and society in general. And I think like studies like that are a good first point. So it's like, you know, that's one tool you can use. Um, but then I think like tracking that through, so it's like not only look for the studies, but then look for like news coverage on those studies, because it's one of those things where it's like if um you can always equate it down to business value in the end. It's just about how like far ahead of the trend you want to be. But it's like if it's something that there are loads of studies about, there's loads of like news articles, and there's loads of like basically like public perception is starting to change, then the argument is, if we keep doing this, or if we go down this route, um, we will actually lose users because we're not prioritizing their experience. We're prioritizing our business value. Um, and yeah, it is. It's like detrimental to the end user is business speak euphemism for a dark pattern or dickish flow or manipulative patterns. Because dark patterns are bad phrase as well. But yeah, I think I don't know. I'm curious. Are there any other like big candidates for um similar kinds of patterns that you've seen that you also want to say, hey, maybe think about don't doing these?
Yeah, I think like the ones that are like when you go sign up for like you're booking a trip and then they're like, "Hey, by the way, you know, you can add like pay $20 and get some insurance," and you say no and they're like, "Are you really sure? Cuz like you're spending this much money and the factors of getting in an accident or a trip cancellation or your flight gets delayed like, ones that are really trying to like force you to buy that insurance or hey you
It's
know
like
fi-
anxiety
yeah,
driven decision
like
making.
5 hotel rooms left going
Yeah,
fast and it's weird because I there's a balance because I think sometimes knowing that there is a legit scarcity is
yeah.
helpful. um
But I think artificial scarcity is definitely that's because it's as somebody who has implemented those in the past, because I'm like, wow, booking.com are they're amazing, and they're revolutionizing UX. It's like now I look back and go, wow, those are some very manipulative patterns.
And
Like,
and I think that's the thing is like nobody documents that, right? Like so I think, to say like in your design system documentation, hey, we're going to use this pattern, but be careful how you use it or use it for these circumstances is really helpful to
yeah,
educate others because otherwise people are just going to make assumptions of like, I saw this on booking.com. I saw this here. This other major company uses it. That means we probably should use it too, right? I think shedding like it's almost like educating, right? And
yeah, and
helping
I think
expand, yeah, thought around.
educating educating via user stories as well and via user quotes is really good. Like if I mean, you just need to go and do some user testing with things like this to say, hey, how did that make you feel? And then just use their verbatim um examples, or again just look online like for artificial scarcity is like one that is strong. And so just look up the negative side of artificial scarcity and you'll probably get some great resources and great quotes that you can use, because I do think that it is like what you're saying, it's like educating why it's not a great idea, and yeah, where it's useful and where it's not useful, because sometimes, well, I think actually true scarcity it's like labeling where there's true scarcity, yes. Artificial scarcity in most cases is probably it's a manipulative behavior. It's just about where that, like when it, I don't know, is there a point where it can be manipulative but okay?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, is this artificial? I
Is lying
don't
okay ever?
know.
Um,
Well,
you
I guess
know,
it depends, right? Like,
if I say, hey, there are only, there's only 2 tickets left to our webinar, when in reality, I mean, there's unlimited tickets. Is that is that an issue? I've never done that, I promise.
we
Only
would
for
just
my
think you're
punk shows.
super weird. We're
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
why are there only 2 tickets left? That does not make sense.
Yeah. Um, I think another one for me, that I've definitely been guilty of in the past because I thought it was humorous, is confirm shaming. Um, and it's interesting because I mean, I think it's like a lower tier of confirm shaming that Rachel pointed out in the chat is the Are you sure when a user has done an intended action? Digital gaslighting. Now, there are reasons where are you sure when a user has done an intended action can make sense. Like if you're trying to mitigate against like accidental destructive action in like your experience, right?
Yeah,
That would
like
make sure.
can't go back. Like you're really gonna
Yeah,
delete your account.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Or yeah, I don't know. One that I would like to see, if you um if there's a way to accidentally or unintentionally add extra things into a basket when you're paying for something, are you sure? Do you really want extra travel insurance? That might be a good use of are you sure? um, Especially if you've maybe designed the flow to be a bit shitty in the first place. Um, but then I think on the extreme end of that, I think confirm shaming is one that I don't know. I still have mixed opinions about this. So a good example of confirm shaming is say you're well, where I can use a real example in a previous previous company that I worked in. We're a language learning app, and on the upsells to convert people to being paid users, we'd use like witty um, I don't know, witty attempts at with being witty in the ads. So like, we'd have a character that looked a little bit by Adele, and we'd have, I don't know, some lyrics from Hello or some crap. I don't know. It was probably really bad. But it was like the dismiss message at the bottom was always something like, "Oh no, it's okay," you know. What is it? I'm okay with you crying, or like something like that. It was always something that I thought it was being like whimsical and flippant. But actually, what we were saying was like, you're a shitty person because you're not accepting to give us money, was the underlying message. And I think, speaking of language learning apps, like Duolingo are a really good example of people who do a lot of confirm shaming,
Oh yes,
um,
100%.
and using like guilt as a mechanism to try and like drive user retention and upsell. It's to the point where it's kind of become a joke, right?
Yeah, I always like to see like what push notifications I'm gonna get from Duolingo. Like I have like a streak with a like I guess it's like a buddy streak that you can go
Yeah.
on, and every day I have my friend pinging me like, "Hey Michelle, I'm carrying the weight of the streak by myself." And I'm like, "Wow. Wow." Um um but
It's
yeah,
the
I
Yeah. But that's the thing is like there are real world consequences to this as well. So like Renata in the chat has said that their son is afraid of going to bed if they've not done their Duolingo. My son is actually the same. Like he's so proud of his 100-day Duolingo streak, but I think it's a really unhealthy thing sometimes because he gets visibly anxious and like upset if there's a chance that he's going to miss his streak for a day. And he's run out of freezers or something. I don't know what the mechanisms are these days. I kind of stopped using it because I felt like I was being bullied by a fucking green owl. So it's but anyway, but I think that like
yeah,
that's
Rachel
pretty
called
bad
it this.
experience, right?
Yeah, Rachel called it the self-aware bully owl.
um Alrighty, I realized that we've just gone through our favorite bad patterns, but we haven't actually switched it over to any questions from folks. So if you got any more questions, please chuck them in the chat. There's a good one here from Renata. So we have 100 plus sites for local newspapers all over the country. We are now challenged to do what everyone else does for consuming short videos, like a Reels experience or TikTok. Would 10 videos as a start and then see more button be better than an infinite scroll? Which I suppose is like, this is the thing. Yes. I think the best experience is probably like having something that doesn't build addictive behavior. Um, but there is like, it's almost like uh progressive enhancement, right? Or gradual degradation of experience, right? Go for the ideal experience and then, try and keep it to the ideal experience, but just move down in shittiness. Step by step until the business is happy, whilst trying to fight for that corner, right? But do you think that that's probably like one of the better ways to tackle that kind of problem?
Yeah, I think if you had to do something like this, right, versus like let's just open the floodgates and we fully know that we're just gonna create another mess. I mean, I have other questions about this in general of like I
Why?
think I feel like yeah, like LinkedIn, they started putting in shorts and people started flipping out. Um
I
and
mean,
then
in the same way that when like it can work, like Instagram when they put in stories, everybody was very skeptical because they're like, "Oh, you're just copying Snapchat." Um, kind of worked for Instagram, but that is a like they're probably the 1% of people who tried to replicate Snapchat and it worked.
yeah.
um, we actually had a good experience of this as well at aforementioned language learning app, which I don't know, go back to previous episodes, I've probably actually named them. But we did the exact same thing. So one of the core parts of the experience in the app was videos and short videos of like native speakers speaking the language. Um, and they wanted to make it more sticky. And TikTok had just blown up in like 2019. Um, and so they, you know, spent a long time trying to get this like feed because they had to record a bunch of video and get video from places as well. Um, and well, let's just say that the company is a lot smaller now and has definitely dropped down the rungs of top language learning apps. But basically, it was a big investment that didn't work. And so, like, it is one of those things where it's like just copying the functionality and the experience of another app is not always a sort of like guarantees to success. So it's like maybe there's some work that can be done around like brainstorming how you could possibly get there. I feel like we're getting out of design system space here, um, but yeah, like try and get them to run like a little Google style design sprint, Google Ventures style design sprint to maybe come up with some crazy outlandish ways of trying to achieve the same thing because yes, newspapers are losing subscribers these days, and you don't want the local newspapers to die, but there's not one there will be many potential ways to like try and fix that.
Yeah, I mean, I kinda like it like, I know this is, like, a little bit off topic, but I like the idea of, like, short little videos of news, so then I don't have to read the article, right?
Yeah.
And I'd rather see, like, a little news video than, I don't know, something that's not useful. Well, I like to see those too, but I don't need to see 50 of them.
Well, that's it. And maybe it's more around like serving up the video at the right times as opposed to trying to get an infinite scroll of video. Because it's interesting. One of the really interesting experiments that we once ran that had um, surprising outcomes was actually limiting the amount of time that somebody could use the app and putting in sort of like artificial limits to try and sort of basically it was to build FOMO and build like um, a sense of like wanting to do more. Because what we found is when we observed users using the app, they would just keep going because it was quite a moreish experience. Language learning, especially when you're starting, can be really exciting. However, the longer the user's first session was, the less likely they were to come back the next day, which is a really interesting one. So I think it's like, this is why it's like really important to sort of keep up with. And this is like a concept in gaming that's like quite popular. So, if you think of things like, well, they use it for evil as well because it's to make you pay. But the concept of like, losing your lives in something like Candy Crush and then not being able to get those lives back for a certain amount of time. That is like a sort of tried and tested method in gaming to try and like push, but it also produces these like highly engaged people who use the free version like over and over again and build those habits through like small concentrated use. Which would be like, I mean, again, there's like, it's, which problematic do you want to go for? But it's like one of those ones where it might actually be, because Guy pointed out in the chat, it's a problem when the incentive is to keep eyeballs on the app by any means. instead of making the users want to stay on the app with relevant quality content. And capitalism has made that boat sink. And it's like, that's true, but it's like, actually, I think sometimes almost like straw manning the opposite idea and seeing if it like works, or like straw manning concepts that might feel counterintuitive, and doing like a small experiment and testing out, you might get like surprising results, because when it comes to businesses as well, if you have people who are, streaks aren't the answer, but engaged on a daily, like engaged daily for 5 years, is way better for your business than people who are engaged like for 12 hours at one time and then burn out horribly, and delete your app.
They finish all their Japanese lessons.
Yeah, it's well, that's it. It's there's only so many Japanese words in the world you can learn before you actually have to get out there and start speaking it. But yeah. Sadly, that is all the time we've got for today. Again, I feel like I monologued at you, Michelle, so I apologize for that.
No, I think this is good. There's been a lot of good discussions, a lot of good examples.
So what do we have up next week?
Next week, we have where should design systems sit in your organization?
I have so many thoughts. I actually have a
Yeah.
half-written article about this as well that hopefully will be out by then. So tune in again in 2 weeks' time for that one. If you have any suggestions for future topics, or if you have questions or comments, please send them through to us. You can send them via email at community@zeroheight.com. You can get in touch with us on Blue Sky. Are you on Blue Sky yet,
Yeah, I'm on
Michelle?
Blue Sky. I've been on Blue Sky, I
Great.
just haven't been using it, apparently.
Perfect. So I'm at lurkmovie.bsky.social.
And I'm at
Brilliant.
soy/chid.bsky.social. It's a
Perfect.
mouthful.
And you can also find Zero Height on Blue Sky now too, because we've got rid of the evil Tesla app. Or you can look us up on LinkedIn as well. But please come and chat to us. And otherwise, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Thanks very much, guys.
Yeah, thanks for
Bye.
joining.